Shadows remember everything, even the screams. You're watching Unwanted Files. If fear excites you, like, share, and subscribe. More nightmares await. In August 1973, Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a duplex home at 328 Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, with their young daughters, Dawn and Heather. The house was a double-block structure that Jack's parents, John and Mary Smurl, also lived in, occupying the other half of the building. What seemed like a perfect family arrangement would soon become a 13-year nightmare that would terrorize two families and capture national attention. The first signs of something unusual began in 1974, just 1 year after moving in. The family started experiencing what they initially dismissed as typical old house problems: strange sounds in the walls, unexplained odors, and the occasional feeling that they weren't alone. These early incidents were subtle enough that the family tried to rationalize them away, attributing the sounds to settling wood and the smells to old plumbing. As the years progressed, the paranormal activity in the Smurl home became increasingly aggressive and undeniable. Family members reported hearing footsteps in empty rooms, particularly in the upstairs areas of both sides of the duplex. The mysterious odors grew stronger and more frequent. Witnesses described smells ranging from rotting flesh to sulfur that would appear suddenly and then vanish just as quickly. Objects began moving on their own throughout the house. Kitchen utensils would be found scattered across floors, furniture would be rearranged overnight, and personal belongings would disappear only to reappear in impossible locations. The family's radio would turn on by itself, often tuning to static or strange frequencies that seemed to contain whispered voices. The activity wasn't limited to inanimate objects. Family members, particularly the women, reported being physically touched, pushed, and even scratched by invisible forces. Janet Smurl claimed to have been thrown downstairs on multiple occasions, resulting in real injuries that required medical attention. The children were especially targeted. Dawn and Heather reported being pulled from their beds at night and experiencing terrifying nightmares that felt more real than dreams. Temperature fluctuations became a constant issue in the house. Certain rooms would become freezing cold without explanation, even during summer months, while other areas would become unbearably hot. The family's heating bills skyrocketed as they tried to maintain comfortable temperatures, but the supernatural cold spots seemed to resist any attempt at warming. By the early 1980s, the Smurl family was no longer dealing with just invisible forces. They began seeing full-bodied apparitions throughout their home. Jack Smurl reported encountering the spirit of an elderly woman in old-fashioned clothing who would appear in various rooms, sometimes seeming confused or lost, other times appearing angry or threatening. More disturbing were the appearances of what the family described as demonic entities. These dark figures would materialize in bedrooms, often standing over sleeping family members. Unlike the elderly woman, these entities seemed malevolent and purposeful, radiating an aura of pure evil that left witnesses paralyzed with fear. The attacks on family members became more violent and personal. Janet Smurl reported being sexually assaulted by an invisible entity, an experience so traumatic that she initially couldn't speak about it to anyone, including her husband. Jack claimed to have been repeatedly attacked by unseen forces that would pin him down and attempt to choke him. By 1985, the Smurl family had endured over a decade of supernatural torment. They had tried moving out temporarily on several occasions, but the activity seemed to follow them or intensify upon their return. Traditional religious interventions, including multiple blessings by local priests, provided only temporary relief before the activity resumed with renewed intensity. Desperate for answers and help, the family reached out to various paranormal investigators and psychics. Most were unable to provide lasting solutions, and some refused to return after witnessing the intensity of the activity firsthand. It was during this period that the Smurls heard about Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators who had gained recognition for their work on cases like the Amityville Horror. In 1986, Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the Smurl home in West Pittston after being contacted by the desperate family. Lorraine, who claimed to be clairvoyant, immediately sensed multiple supernatural presences in the house. The Warrens spent several days investigating the property, using recording equipment, cameras, and Lorraine's psychic abilities to document the phenomena. According to the Warrens' assessment, the Smurl home was occupied by 4 distinct spirits and 1 powerful demon. They identified the elderly woman as a former resident who had died in the house and was trapped between worlds. The other 3 spirits were described as less defined entities that may have been drawn to the location by the primary demonic presence. The demon, according to the Warrens, was an ancient evil that had somehow attached itself to the property or the family. Ed Warren, who claimed expertise in demonology, believed this entity was the source of the most violent and sexual attacks experienced by the family members. The Warrens warned that this type of demonic infestation was extremely dangerous and could potentially possess family members if not properly addressed. The Warrens' involvement brought the Smurl case to national attention. Word of the investigation leaked to local media, and soon reporters from across the country were descending on Chase Street in West Pittston. The quiet residential neighborhood became a circus-like atmosphere as curious onlookers, reporters, photographers, and paranormal enthusiasts lined the streets, hoping to witness supernatural activity. The media attention was both a blessing and a curse for the Smurl family. On one hand, it brought validation. They were no longer suffering in silence, and having respected paranormal investigators confirm their experiences provided psychological relief. On the other hand, the constant scrutiny and invasion of privacy added another layer of stress to their already traumatic situation. Neighbors were divided in their reactions. Some supported the family and claimed to have witnessed unusual activities themselves, while others were skeptical and annoyed by the constant media presence and crowds of curiosity seekers. The controversy split the small community and added social pressure to the family's existing supernatural problems. Not everyone believed the Smurl family's claims. Local authorities, including police who had been called to investigate disturbances, found no evidence of criminal activity or natural explanations for the reported phenomena. Some neighbors and community members suggested the family was seeking attention or financial gain through their claims. Professional skeptics and paranormal debunkers also weighed in on the case. They pointed out that many of the reported phenomena could be explained by natural causes, old house settling, plumbing issues, psychological stress, or even deliberate fraud. The lack of conclusive physical evidence, despite the presence of recording equipment during investigations, was cited as particularly suspicious by critics. The controversy was further fueled by the fact that supernatural activity seemed to occur most frequently when family members were the only witnesses, with outside observers rarely experiencing anything significant during their visits. By 1987, after 13 years of supernatural torment, the Smurl family finally found peace, though the exact reason remains unclear. Some attributed the end of the activity to the Warrens' spiritual interventions and cleansing rituals. Others suggested that the media attention and investigation process itself may have somehow disrupted the supernatural forces. The family was eventually able to live normally in their home without the constant fear and supernatural attacks that had defined their lives for over a decade. The crowds of curiosity seekers gradually dispersed, and Chase Street returned to being a quiet, residential neighborhood. The Smurl haunting became one of the most well-documented and publicized paranormal cases of the 1980s. It was featured in numerous books, magazine articles, and television documentaries. In 1991, the case was adapted into a made-for-TV movie titled The Haunted, starring Sally Kirkland and Jeffrey DeMunn. The case contributed to the growing reputation of Ed and Lorraine Warren as America's premier paranormal investigators, and helped establish many of the characteristics that would later be featured in the Conjuring film franchise: multiple spirits, demonic presence, family trauma, and the Warrens' spiritual warfare approach to dealing with supernatural threats. Today, the house on Chase Street still stands, and while subsequent residents have not reported supernatural activity, The Smurl haunting remains one of the most famous cases in paranormal investigation history. Whether viewed as genuine supernatural phenomena or an elaborate case of mass hysteria and suggestion, the Smurl family's 13-year ordeal continues to fascinate and divide believers and skeptics alike. Beyond the supernatural claims and media sensation, the Smurl haunting took a very real toll on the family involved. The constant stress, sleep deprivation, physical injuries, and psychological trauma affected every member of the household. The children in particular grew up in an environment of fear and uncertainty that undoubtedly impacted their development and worldview. The family's ordeal highlights the human element often overlooked in sensationalized paranormal cases. Regardless of the source of their experiences, the Smurl family endured genuine suffering and terror for over a decade, seeking help from anyone who might provide relief from their nightmarish situation. And that's the true story behind one of America's most documented hauntings. 13 years of terror that a family endured in what should have been their safe haven. Whether you believe the Smurls experienced genuine supernatural phenomena or something else entirely, one thing remains undeniable. This family lived through something that forever changed their lives. The Smurl case reminds us that behind every paranormal investigation, every ghost story, and every horror movie based on true events, there are real people dealing with real fear, real trauma, and real consequences. While we may never know the complete truth about what happened on Chase Street, the human story of a family's struggle against the unknown continues to resonate decades later. What do you think really happened to the Smurl family? Were they victims of a genuine supernatural infestation? Or is there a more earthly explanation for their 13-year ordeal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story gave you chills, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into true paranormal cases. Ring the notification bell so you never miss when we explore the dark corners of real-life mysteries.